All right. All right. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Professor Spira back. This is part 2. If you're watching this live, you'll notice that about 50 minutes in, we started having some technical issues. I overheated my system and blew a fuse and all kinds of stuff. It was beeping at me, and all of a sudden, everything went off. So apologize about that. If you're watching this recorded later, then you will be able to see all of this in one video because we will edit this a little later on. So
Hey, Professor
where
Spira,
were
real
we? I
quick.
think we were talking about colons, I think.
Yeah. Ironically, it had to be when we were talking about enemas, healing in the colon,
Right.
that this had to happen.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And so yeah, so I know, yeah, we were watching the video, and the ultimate message is, I mean, that's one thing I like to do. I've always done, as far back as when I started really sharing the Mucusless diet information with people. I would take pictures from, there's the Bernard Jensen tissue cleaning for bowel, or the colon, or whatever the whole title is for that. But that book, I don't agree with a lot of what he has to say about diet in the book, but the pictures that he has of mucoid plaque and waste and slime that's come out of people after they've done different forms of colon irrigation is, it speaks for itself, and it's all real.
Hmm.
Because then there's people that try to say, oh, it's a hoax, there's no such thing as mucoid plaque. And it's like, well, I mean, you can call it what you want. It's a mass of slime that takes different consistencies. Sometimes the slime is really kind of can be hard and kind of like gristle, and sometimes it can be like real soft or be stringy and all that kind of stuff. And then people get into analyzing, like, is it a parasite or all that kind of stuff, but there's always going to be some mucus.
Yeah.
um, and then you get the people that are like, well, it's the body produced all of that, and I don't agree with that type of reasoning when it comes to some of this uneliminated unnatural food substance that creates this mass of slime in there. And so I definitely like to, I've found a lot of success with visual aids. Even when I used to go, the couple times me and brother went out to and set up a table at conventions. There's like the health conventions, and we went to a couple of those, and I would always have some pictures of the mucoid plaque featured very prominently, because that would always be a good conversation starter, where people would be like, well, what is that? I'm like, well, that's what's inside you, presumably. And they're like, and that gets their attention. And so, yeah, when people talk about, yeah, they're clean. And the other one I'll get is, well, I did a cleanse. I did a 5-day cleanse, and and I took herbs, and I'm clean, I'm regular, I have a bowel movement every day or whatever it is. I'm just like, you don't get it. It's like, this ain't, this goes deeper than, okay, let me drink some clay or something. This is like, we gotta deal with some serious stuff. And then once you get it out of you, then it speaks for itself, because you feel better, not just to
Hmm.
not have all of this slime and grime all up in you.
Yeah, that's so accurate. It really is, and it's kind of funny too to think that some individuals, most individuals, feel that, hey, I use the restroom 2 times a day. I'm okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not constipated. But there's deeper levels to that just fly right past them. That if you don't really understand the physiology of the body, you're going to believe what you've been told. And
Right.
that's for most individuals, that's that puts you in a position of misinformation, because everything misleads, or everything leads you to destroying yourself. And the truth about health and regeneration of the body, it's not readily available to the masses, and I don't foresee that happening. But at some point there will be a shift when individuals who are like-minded join together and the message starts to get out, because in all reality it's a very, very simple message. There is not much complexity to this that is going to just be, oh, I don't know how to heal myself, or I don't know how to cure my body of these chronic conditions that I'm suffering from. So, you know, with that being said, it's just, it goes right back to the message. It goes right back to we're trying to build, connect, expand, to assist humanity with making changes within their life to get out of this mess that we currently live in.
Right.
Now, you mentioned something about being in a position to kind of just get off grid, live in an area where, hey, you're predominantly in a tropical environment, surrounded by fruit trees, right off the beach. Like you're, you know, that's an ideal scenario for a lot of practitioners in this field of wanting to get out of the system. And that reality, it needs to really take place in our communities. And we have to be the ones that ignite that flame to want to push and push and challenge these corporations and these jurisdictions that control us to, hey, well, you're not going to see change if everybody's eating fast food. You're not going to see change if you go to the store and you're buying processed GMO foods and meats all of the time. It has to be the consumers that make the change in order for there to be a bigger flow of change throughout this world. Would you agree on that, or anything to say about that?
Yeah, and we're in such a strange predicament now, because with the media, and there's more people that are kind of getting away from the standard television kind of media, but then you get lost online and there's just some of the more same idiocy and stuff that just take you way off into bizarro land there. And so with the TV, and that it's orienting you to this certain kind of thing. And I see a lot of people vicariously living through these figures. Oftentimes, you know, traditionally they were, you know, the Hollywood elite type of figures and actors, and then you know, musicians, but especially actors, because lots of times musicians could be kind of, you know, ugly. It was like you know, nobody expected a lot of rock stars to, you know, like Keith Richards. You know, some of these guys aren't going to be, you know, looking be in the picture of health. They didn't have to be. That wasn't the orientation. But the orientation toward like the Hollywood people and the, you know, sexiest man on the cover of whatever magazine and all this kind of stuff. There's this entire, when you really get down there and you look at the way that a lot of these folks are living, it's normal to have, I mean, in the way that it's normal for us to do an enema, there's some people that'll go and get plastic surgery like it ain't nothing. And I'm from the Midwest, and so that kind of blows my mind. But then when I hear people that live in LA and you know, Southern California and some places in Florida and that, you know, and that kind of thing, to hear how common plastic surgery is, like they're going in like they're getting a pedicure or manicure or something. They're going in, let me do this, and let me tuck this and then suck this fat out. And so when you are, there's so much fakeness, but the problem is people are viewing this fakeness as if it is the picture of health, and then wonder why some of their idols that look so healthy are passing away and you know, are going through something, and you find out that they're on heroin or crack or cocaine or whatever, you know, whatever it is behind the scenes. Because it's all an illusion. You know, the TV has enabled this situation where it's this illusion. You can vicariously live through these characters. I mean, half the time these are people that are acting, and I appreciate a good, you know, some good as an artist. You know, I appreciate someone that can communicate emotions and do, you know, act and embody a character. But when people get too lost in that and they're getting to the point where uh you know, they're just, you know, they want to be these figures, you know, it's this obsession. Whereas what I'm trying to do is like, okay, let's get away from that, let's unplug from that and actually deal with ourselves and deal with real life, you know, and people. And that's hard. I mean, that's hard for folks to do that, because it's like the nature of our brain is and a lot of some philosophies of modern that look at modern society, and they'll say that a lot of what humanity has tried to do is find ways to not be bored. And so now that's sort of, we would take a different take on that, because we would bring the mucus and pus analysis into that and say, yeah, but it's one thing to be bored, but it's another thing to be high on pus and mucus foods and be bored. And so people lose their minds, and that's what is happened, you know. So when we look at all of the ways to get rid of boredom, you know, playing all these video games, and I mean, the video game industry is insane when I see the numbers. I mean, it's just the biggest form of entertainment around the world in terms of the amount of money that it makes. Going the emasculation sports, you know, the emasculating sports, the go and see these these guys play professional sports that they don't have a connection oftentimes to the team that they're, other than they're doing a job. They were drafted onto a team and they're paid to do a job, but it's like in Rome when they had the gladiators, and just it's a way for people to escape themselves because they're uncomfortable, they're bored, and uncomfortable is a bad situation. And so some people would say, well, it's good for society to function. It's good to have all of these things to take your well, I would say take your energy, but take your take your focus away, so that you don't, you don't start looking at your situation thinking, maybe I don't want to be a slave anymore. Maybe I do want to be free. You know, for society as it is now to function, there's a vested interest for nobody to think like that. You know, we gotta be comfortable with playing Grand Theft Auto and going down to the Reds baseball game or the football game, or, you know, like all of these things fit perfectly within the society as we have it. And it makes it also easier to ignore the disasters and the things that, again, that we're desensitized to. You know, how many mass shootings have happened this week? How many wars are happening right now? How many people around the world are enslaved? I mean, they're like there's, you know, slavery is alive and well in the world. We just don't talk about it because it's uncomfortable. And it's easier, you know, if we're in a place of privilege where we might be enslaved in different ways, you know, mentally, but we're not physically. Most of us that's probably listening to this broadcast, we're not like, we don't have someone with a gun to our head saying, okay, you better sew this. You better sew this shirt that someone's going to buy at Walmart or you're done. You know, we don't have that. And so
there's different forms of that.
Yeah, definitely different forms of that. And so that's what I'm in. I mean, I'm into taking a look at the world for real, you know, and that's something you probably have to transition into, because I know I did over my life in terms of, I mean, I started at a young age studying some of the harshest realities of of the history of the world, you know, for whether it be
Mm-hmm.
slavery or, I mean, the ones people know of, you know, you get the African slavery and, you know, indigenous peoples almost being just wiped off the face of the earth and Holocaust and stuff, you know. But I was studying these things. I was like, you know, fourth and fifth grade. You know, I'm like 10 and 11 years old, and I'm looking through books of lynchings, you know, of black people that are hundreds of black people that were hung, you know, and they took pictures of it. Or I'm looking through like Holocaust books and stuff. But I just had this desire to, like, I knew something was wrong. See, I didn't
Yeah.
accept this thing out here. Like I'm like, okay, I can have fun and I can play sports and I can do these things, but there's not a moment when I'm going to convince myself or be convinced that this thing out here is right and that this thing out here is normal. You know, I've always known something was terribly, terribly wrong,
Mm-hmm.
but they've been able to create enough diversion and emasculate folks enough to feel that they can't do anything about it, that, you know, people stay in their place and just stay in they might talk a good game or talk like, you know, yeah, you ain't gonna do nothing, you know, and that's what it is. And so yeah, I mean, there definitely a consciousness shift is in order. We really, the more that we get this information out there and that people get plugged in and we uh and get that energy, because one thing that is good that I see is I do see a number of young people that are interested in the things that we're talking about, you know, and interested in detoxification and, you know, mucusless diet and that kind of stuff. And so part of my goal is to at least put enough information out there that's interesting and accessible. That's one thing, because some people make videos and it's like, you talk about boring, you know, they'd be like, like, I juiced some juice today. You know, it'd be like, be interesting or something. But you know, so I try to put things out that people can, you know, be entertaining as well as informative, and and just start igniting that flame in people's heart that we can do better than this. You know,
Yeah.
we can do much better than this.
Yeah. And, you know, just to touch on that aspect, to really consider the fact that we are filled with mucus, pus, acids, waste, toxic, really just whatever you want to consider, parasites, worms, we're filled with that. And that has strong influences on all of our bodies. It's because it's not just a physical body that we have, your mental side, your emotional side, your spiritual astral side, however you want to perceive that. And these foods are destroying us, and also it is helping to control us into the system that is laid out in front of us, with the distractions in media, with entertainment, with advertising and marketing. Everything has its purpose and place. And what the Mucusless Diet Healing System does and gives to an individual is that ability to clear the windows of your reality and
Right.
see for yourself from a cleaner body, that, hey, maybe they are trying to control us. Maybe they are trying to dictate what we do and how we live in all little aspects of our life. And this is why, coming from a position in my own life where, you know, I've been a trainer for 10 plus years, and myself and my brother operate a gym in an amazing facility, and um, we're highly involved with the community, with all the kids, with different programs throughout the area. And what we do in our physical life is, I mean, connecting it with the Mucusless Diet Healing System, I feel obligated to assist and put out this information as much as I possibly can, because when an individual begins this journey, it doesn't take long for you to see changes within yourself, both on a physical level, but with the rest of your bodies as well. And this is why it's such a powerful thing to consider, that it is our responsibility, just as Eric would say, we're the ones that have to go through the flames to purify ourselves. If we're looking to enter that paradise or into the heavens, or we have to clean ourselves out. Where if our Creator gave us this vessel, our temple to live in, and what are we doing by putting all these mucus and pus and acid forming foods into us, destroying our physical body, destroying our health, bringing us closer to death, but also leading us astray. And the dark forces that surround us, they're pulling us in those directions instead of into finding that paradise within ourselves and within our reality. That's kind of one other thing I wanted to speak with you about, because I know that you guys are highly into Eric's work. And for the viewers that are already in this journey or that are aware of detoxification lifestyle, I want to bring this to your attention, because Eric, he was an average. I mean, you can't read his work and think that this guy was just normal. And what I mean by that is that read between the lines of his work and realize that he was doing acts of considerable, it would require more of a person to do the stuff that he was doing. For example, he was regularly expressing himself through great acts of endurance and strength. Not even to mention, there was one indication where he was on a bike ride for 56 hours without stopping. He's done on long fasts or extensive fasts, 800 miles bike ride. He's doing things like sunbathing in 120-degree weather and not sweating. He's described the aura that he's achieved within himself and that spiritual enlightenment that he has gained. So there's a lot of what he's describing that it's not just man, it's levels above that. And this is where, so often he describes that paradise that we at some point lived in. And, also bringing into this a wrinkle-free person, full patch of hair, like everything about you it's advancing. So when individuals think of detoxing, they think of going backwards first. They think of declining. You have to pay reparations for what you've done, and you got to fix your endocrine system. You got to fix your organs. You got to, there's a lot of negativity to the process, but I feel people stay stuck in that. They stay stuck in that. They don't realize that, hey, this is not going to happen in a year or 2 or 3. This is a lifetime of having to correct what we've done to ourselves and what our parents have done and their parents. And it's so much more profound than something, oh, well, I'm still suffering and it's already been 2 years. But
right. And that makes me think of, I'm not a fan of some people need this message for a very specific situation. But to me, it shouldn't be a generalized sort of principle for everybody, which is I don't feel good yet, so just dig deeper. Meaning, just fast on fruit for longer, take more herbs, or it's kind of the Morris paradigm. I disagree with that. because I've been with a number of people that had been doing that just totally hit the wall. They weren't gonna that wasn't gonna do it. That wasn't gonna heal
Yeah.
it, doing that. And then they work with me, and I'm like, well, when's the last time you had some cooked mucus-free food? They're like, well, I haven't done that in 2 years. Well, let's do that, and let's
Yeah.
transition properly. And it's in a matter of time, they're feeling normal again and better. And it was unnecessary. They did everything that they could do in that realm of dealing with the fruits, and they had, for that period of time, you gotta hit the reset button on your body. And that's the piece that's missing in a lot in that I'm just noticing in that community, that's kind of coming out in the more harsh approaches. There's not enough individualization to understand that. Yeah, there's sometimes I'm working with somebody, and the recommendation is, yeah, we got to go for it. If you're mentally, but I only recommend that when I know people are mentally ready, and there's still always a transitional
Hmm.
methodology connected to it. It's never just, okay, here's your protocol. Here, just eat this, drink that, and then
Take these herbs. Yeah.
yeah, take these herbs. It's like, nah, we got to deal with what you used to eat, what are you craving now. I like to look a lot at cravings. What symptoms are you experiencing right now? I'm much more interested in your symptoms, other than what some doctor told you that you had based on a test, some kind of test. So they're simple principles, but they I don't see them. I'm not seeing them being real prominent yet, because it's not, I don't know if we're just not loud enough with I guess talking about it, is where some of the other methods are more interesting, I guess, or something. But that type of analysis, I mean, I've always felt that the facial, kinds of things that Eric talked about in Mucusless Diet, where observing someone's skin and face, and uh, along with what they ate and what they're craving, what their symptoms are. That data to me is is very important, and just based on that data alone, I'm usually able to tell somebody what they're probably going to go through, and what, the ailments and all that kind of stuff. I know some people are really into the iris reading, the iridology. I dabbled in that and looked into it, so I knew about it. But for me, and when I'm working with people, I've noticed that there's limitations with that. So I agree with Eric on that, honestly. And so I'm not saying not to get into that, but don't ignore and understand facial analysis, skin analysis, symptom, understanding in simplicity of understanding the symptoms. It doesn't have to get real complex, but there's things that we can do to understand. But then once you observe that, you got to know what to do with that data, which is where
Correct.
diet and proper methodology of transition comes in to play. If I'm working with somebody that's craving, because here would be maybe a difference where I've seen, if somebody is craving fish and they're like, man, I'm really craving fish, I'm not going to tell them to go, well, here, take these herbs and and just eat fruit for several days, and your fish addiction will go away. It might, but that's not what I'm gonna recommend someone do. We're gonna transition this person until that thirst and that desire for fish is permanently gone, to the point where you couldn't look at fish as something that would be edible. It's no longer part of your reality. And that's the magic of the transition, to really transform your physiology permanently, so that it becomes impossible to go back to certain things.
Hmm. Yeah, and just to touch on that as well, the enemas the enemas pop in right there with that process. Just
Right.
to add some clarification for the viewers out there, that's essential when you're cleaning out your colon, and your bacterium it's going to shift. It's also going to shift in your body. That is going to assist you to come off of these foods that you may have once craved or desired, but then after a few enemas, it's like, I think I'll be good to not eat this anymore. So that's also very much needed. And then also going back to the whole, I should have, of course, done the disclaimer, the Professor Spira's disclaimer before I spoke about Eric's more of a dramatic work.
Right.
Because yeah, you're absolutely right. Where individuals, especially coming from a Dr. Morse's, background, feel that it is needed to jump all the way in and be on a extensive juice fast or grape diet. And I'm not suggesting that's not an approach into this, because if you are suffering from a chronic condition or you are on your deathbed, physically or mentally, you do need maybe that assistance and that drastic measure going forward for a bit. But at some point you'll hit these walls within yourself that will surface and make it difficult to move forward without have done a proper transition off of these foods and lifestyle that we have been living in. So there's so many levels to this that we want to be able to explore them, but establishing that strong foundation with ourselves has to be established first. Because what happens is people jump right in without knowing everything, and then they come up with an obstacle that they didn't know about, and they're, what do I do? And I'm going to go put it on a thread, and I'm going to get 20 to 100 different response of one topic, but all these different explanatories of what they should do, when they're not even listening to their own bodies. They haven't even comprehended what they need to be doing as an individual.
Right.
Which kind of leads me to this next topic that I want to get into, because there's a lot of confusion and dogmas between raw foodists and fruitarians and breatharians, and I'm this and I'm that, and let's put a halt in this for everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody just stop wherever you're at. Just stop, just for a couple minutes, listen to what we got to talk about real quick, and then move forward. Now, referring back to Eric, his perspective on food is based a little bit more on how it eliminates and removes waste from our body, rather than the value and the nutrition inside of the foods. So if you could kind of touch on that, where what is food's purpose? What is food supposed to be for us? Like can you explain that and try to, not raw food this, or you have to just fruit that, like kind of explain it a little bit. Like, what is food's purpose for us in this journey?
Okay. Yeah. So we inch in on what we like to call the paradigm shift. The paradigm is like system of thought, the way that you see the world, the way that you describe everything, the way you think about a topic. And so we've inherited, generally speaking, everybody that has any level of, participation in society has inherited a paradigm about the human body and eating that's based on eating food for fuel. This idea that, okay, we need to eat food to get fuel, and then there's theories, the calorie theory, which was developed not that long ago, the early 1900s, the Atwater and the calorie meter. You got that kind of thing, and the folks that were getting into different kinds of trying to analyze biochemical things and all this reductivist analysis. we've inherited that. And so growing up, we didn't learn these things from, and think about where you learned all that. Where did you even learn that? Who told you that food is what gives you energy? You know, who said that? Where'd that come from? Because we know that, you know, most people, you can go a day or two without food and you're not gonna, you know, most people aren't gonna die. You know, you can't go 5 minutes without air, without breathing air. So what's most important? The paradigm shift for Mucusless Diet Healing System reality is we're going to look at air first, and we're going to look at this breathing process as this is what gives us energy. Is the air. The air and the breathing process gives us energy. And the breathing process is unable to properly function when there's too much obstruction in the body, or obstruction, you know, just if there's something that's obstructing the air from getting into your lungs, that's also an obstruction. So you can be obstructions inside the body, obstructions outside the body. Once we don't get enough oxygen to our blood, that's the end of the game. That's you know, game over at that point. So the paradigm shift is, instead of being so obsessed with, like, okay, am I getting the right amino acids? Let me calculate this. Let me say, okay, how many calories I got? All of this stuff that the majority of people don't do. Most people don't sit there with a calculator and try to figure out this calorie concept and how much of this and that and grams of stuff that they're consuming. You know, it's something. Yet those are the same people that will come to us and say, well, how do you get your protein? How do you get enough calories? It's like, well, how do you don't count it either. You know, you don't. So all of a sudden you're concerned about us. We don't believe in that. We just don't believe in theory. So I'm not, because all these are constructions. Because and I admit that to view, even though for us it's self-evident that air is premium, that's what is going to give you energy. You take air out of the equation for us, and we're not done, because we're air beings. And then you get into, because once you get the air, then it's like, okay, well then we can talk about sun and, you know, other kind of stuff, but we can't do nothing without the air. And anything that gets in the way of oxygen getting into your bloodstream is an obstruction. And vitality equals power minus obstruction means that vitality is equal to power. You know, power is there. Power is the breathing process. As you bring obstruction in to this power, as soon as obstruction becomes more than the body's ability to breathe and absorb oxygen, the human engine comes to a standstill. That's, again, the end of the game. So instead of looking at food as, okay, I got to get all these things so that I get the nice number of nutrients and this and that, we're saying, what foods eliminate well? Like what foods promote an internal environment that will enable my breathing to be superior, that will enable my breathing and my body to really absorb and totally utilize the oxygen that I'm bringing in. There's a lot of people breathing that don't even use much of the oxygen. They do, you know, very, you know, like the surface breathing, and, you know, most people don't even know how to breathe. That's a whole other subject to get into. Science of breath, you know, how to breathe. But so we just are saying, look, the most important thing first and foremost is breathing, is air. What we want to do is have a diet and a lifestyle that supports our breathing to the highest level. And we found that mucus-free foods ultimately are the foods that create the least amount of obstruction in the body, And if you agree with what Aaron had to say, that fruit is really the only food that produces real blood, that real human blood, then fruit is going to tend to be what we react to the best. Now, what a lot of people do is they take that information and they say, okay, well, then we're fruitarians, then let me just go eat nothing but fruit. Eric didn't say that either. There's a whole long section in the book called Transition Diet, because we understand that we not only have the years we've been living, but we have generations and generations and generations of wrong eating, of transitioning basically in the wrong direction, transitioning. There's this what Hotima, if I bring him into the mix, this, I just like his idea of how'd he say it? Somebody in the comments would bring it. The law of it's not coming to me, but it's basically that the body becomes tolerant. And so when people are saying, well, so-and-so lived to be so old, and it's natural for us to eat that animal flesh, when they get into all that, we're talking about the body's ability to law of vital adjustment. There it came to me. Vital adjustment, tolerance, basically, that our body gets used to what's not normal, because it happened gradually. It didn't happen it's overnight. Now, when we look at different peoples, if we can look at peoples who've been forced into a terrible diet, like indigenous peoples in North and Central America, Africans that were brought over to the Americas as slaves, these are people who have had their diets stripped away from them, even though they ate meat, whatever, but their diets weren't nowhere near as bad as the scraps of the European diet. And so to this day, we can see that there's a reason that those folks are falling apart. There was no transition into the diet that was imposed upon them.
Mm-hmm.
So of course they're not going to function and on a high level and be able to compete with a person whose lineage has prepared them for a preposterous diet. It's not going to happen. And that's a big misconception that people don't understand, is because when you start to go down this path, some people realize, like, wow, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. Well, your ancestors might be further removed from that mucus-free eating dynamic, where the other people are like, man, this isn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Their bloodline might be a little closer to a mucus-free reality. So those are all things to keep in mind. And it helps us understand why, first puts into perspective of how serious this is and how long it might take, and that it's not that to not be hard on yourself, is to not be in this rush, and it's not a competition trying to, because what you're talking about too, there is people that some people that get attracted to Mucusless diet that have a little bit more of that extremist type of tendencies, is like they want to compete with everybody. And so they're looking at Eric talking about, like, he did this a bike ride and all and that kind of stuff, and the 49-day fast and all that kind of thing. And so it's almost like an ego trip, because they don't want to feel like there's other humans on the earth that did something that they couldn't do.
Correct.
And so they get this thing in their head, like, okay, I can do that 49 days, like, and that's why it gets even crazier. We start bringing Brother Air into the mix. And all he's doing is just telling you what he's not telling you to do, what he's doing in terms of, he's just trying to show you, after 37 years of practicing the transition diet, gradually, you can get to I used to call it the laser effect, where, the concept between a laser, you have light that shines everywhere, but as you focus that light, there's a point at which it's gonna shoot. It's gonna turn into a laser when it's focused enough and refined enough. And I find that kind of works with the diet, where all of a sudden, you get real focused, and then it becomes easy to do some of these things that people would think is like mind blowing, but
Yeah.
they didn't get there by just trying to like jump over hurdle, and so or like willpower, like I'm gonna do it, and pushing himself. No, it was the art of transition diet is the art of gradualism, really learning how to master being gradual and going with the ups and downs and the hills and the valleys of this process, and not doing anything that's too extreme, that pulls you off your path. And because what ends up happening is, everything, as you shift, what's normal for you shifts. And so and that's what's hard for people to understand with Brother Air. It's normal for him to live a life with very little food. But it wasn't always like that. It wasn't like that 20 years ago for him. But he has transitioned, and with his physiology and the things that he's done, that's where he's at now. But that's not where everybody will be or has to be, and that's where, I try to say, everybody's goals at this point, should be different. I don't, some people ask me and they want me to kind of make a declaration of like, what is the goal? Where should we be? When are we there? Because people want to feel like they're there, that they can reach this pinnacle, and then they've won a prize or something. But that's where I try to bring the idea of thinking about mucusless diet and the mucus-free lifestyle as an art form. If you understand anything about being an artist, and I think the best, and then for those that are into athletics, to me, the best athletes are artists. They're not scientists, they're artists, because the nature of art is that it's adapting to each person's situation, your strengths, your weaknesses. And as an artist, you learn how to overcome your weaknesses, use and capitalize on your strengths, and develop whatever it is that you're trying to develop into something that's on a very high level. And with the lifestyle, that's to me, and it's still not catching on enough. Like, that, if there's one thing that I would like to see more people really understand and kind of plug into, is understanding, making that connection between the lifestyle as an art, becoming artists of the Mucusless Diet Healing System and mucus-free lifestyle. It's an art form, and when you understand that it's an art form, you are taking into account all these different elements that make you unique and special, in your situation special, and you understand it's not a competition. It's not it's about self-refinement, taking yourself and your physiology and your family's bloodline to the highest level of expression that you can. So it don't have nothing to do with me or Brother Air or Arnold Air or Dr. Morris or anybody else. It don't have nothing to do with nobody else except you and your physiology, and that's the mark of a true artist, when you understand that.
Hey, that's such beauty in the words and description on that, because there is so much information that's available, but at the end of the day, it requires the person as an individual to intake that information, utilize it, apply it, and build your craft on your internal life, your emotional life, and your physical life. And it doesn't matter who you're getting the information from, you still have to utilize it yourself. So being in a position of coming from this society to the Mucusless diet, to wanting to improve your health and your life, and then passing it on to the next person. I mean, that's what it comes down to. And at some point, and this is why I know you feel as equally as passionate about the system, that if you learn the system and you study the system and you understand the transitional aspect that occurs, you're not worried, you're not anxious, you're not stressed. You understand what's happening to your body physically and physically and mentally and emotionally, and you're prepared for it. And this is why it's so much that is needed to understand when you start this, that you're not competing against anybody else. You're not racing anyone. And you need to start from where you're at, where, over the past 6-7 months, I've been a moderator in the Dr. Morse's Facebook page. So on a day-to-day base, I see the struggles that people go through, not just physically, mentally and emotionally, and how unstable individuals could get in this process. And they are looking for answers and looking for someone to assist them, when in fact, if you would have just read this Mucusless Diet Healing System book, you probably could have been comforted and felt more confident moving forward in your own transition to a better life and healing your body. And you wouldn't have so many obstacles. And this is why I don't, like, as I mentioned, I don't care what you want to label yourself. You want to be fruitarian, if you want to be raw foodist, it don't matter. Just are you doing what's necessary to heal your body and to improve yourself and to, cleanse your blood and to remove obstructions? That's ultimately what it comes down to. And this is where I don't mean to bring this topic to, alienate people or groups or whatnot. It's just that awareness. Someone's got to speak on it to bring it to the surface. And we just take it for what it's worth and realize that, hey, if you choose to still eat meat and still choose to live like this, or you want to be raw foodist, I mean, that's all you. That's your life. That's what anybody else does, it doesn't affect us as individuals. And sometimes that illusion that we create ourselves through our own egos is we put ourselves to, oh, well, what is this person going to think, or what are they going to say? Like, you're giving your own life to another person, and based on another person's opinion, or however you want to look at it. But at the end of the day, you come back to the system, you understand the process, you understand the steps that are needed and that will take place. You have the confidence in yourself and you're doing what's necessary. You're gonna eventually get to a point where you're winning. And we just got to look at it from that angle, instead of having all these worries and fears about what's going to happen or what could happen. But just trust the process. Realize that at the end of the day, again, what foods are the healthiest for our species? And most, we have a program called Get Up and Move that my brother and I had created about 7 years back. And we started with 7th grade class, and we teach these kids better ways of health and nutrition. We teach these kids motivational skills. We teach these kids team building skills, and we teach these kids fitness. And 7 years ago, we started this with 7th graders. Now we currently have 3rd through 8th grade that they come to our facility 3 times, one each semester, and they go through the courses and they learn about all these stuff. And at the end of the event, we give them a meal, and then they have free time at our facility that our gym is in McDermott X, and they get to arcade, laser tag, basketball, soccer, flow rider, rock wall. So it's a day of new education that is going to help them to be healthier and improve this reality of health that we currently live in. So what we tell these kids is it comes back to the system for me at least, because this is information that we just have to get out. It's the message that is needed to get this out and to help people to shift and to expand on themselves for their benefit. It has nothing to do, again, with not with who you're hearing it from or what's going on. It's about your own health, gaining vitality, or going the opposite way and getting closer to death. And that's where, coming from a position of counting calories and macro counting and focusing on only the outside of the body and assisting people with, oh, you want abs, we get you abs. You want to have low body fat percentage, like that type of thinking process. Like, now I look at that and it's like coming, like you said in the beginning, hey, you grew up in standard American diet. We're not saying that we're any better or farther advanced than any other person, but we just learn to make adjustments within our own life for our benefit, for our family's benefit. And this is the message overall that we're trying to just give out to people. So we're able to bring a connection that can unite us into a better future for ourselves and for our kids and for the future of humanity. So
yeah, that sounds fun. That you're talking about the the day with the kids and all those activities. And
yeah,
I like that.
yeah. So since we're talking a little bit about that, it's it's something that about 5 years ago, there was a time in 2014, where I first originally found Eric's work, and I started reading it. And at the time, I was going through health conditions, and I read it when I was like in chronic conditions. And I read his work, and I was like, whatever. I read the rational fasting, okay, but nothing stuck to me. And it wasn't until at that point, because of my conditions, led me to Dr. Morse, and I started going more of the fanatic way of, hey, I gotta fast, I gotta fruit only, months on that, and thinking that like that was because I felt that physically my body and where my state of mind was, especially having having a kidney failure on the right side, like that fear creates because of that organ being damaged.
Right.
It truly led me to, hey, I had to do this. I wasn't trying to impress anybody or get validation from anybody. It was because, hey, if this didn't happen, I felt like I was gonna just check out. So it after that initial stage and going through all that, I went back to Eric's work, and reading it again, I was like, whoa, I got to read this again. And then that's where it started to make more sense. And this is where personally I said, okay, you know what? I cannot be judgmental towards other people who don't get this. Where I looked at the time when I was a fanatic, I'm pushing this on to people, and I'm like, hey, you got to read this, or I'm going to get you this book. You got to read it.
Right.
And I just, now looking back, I'm like, damn, I probably push people further away from wanting to be healthy.
Right.
But that's a part of this, and this is where, hey, openly speaking about it now, it's like, okay, you learned from that, you're gonna move forward, you're gonna be able to make better decisions and better approaches, and being able to speak with you about this, and it's kind of brought in quite a bit of information that is gonna assist, and along with that, it will help others in this process as well. But if you can, real quick, I know that this is one of the one of the things that I bring up. It just happens. It just always somehow this always comes up. But Brother Air was in a position in his transitioning that I think it was like about 10 years into the system.
Yeah.
He had a thing for peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my question, if you could assist with that, is how does a person go through the extensive work that Brother Air has done, going even 10 years, and that's a long time, into the system to being, and I believe it's like, you know, I know he's gone extensive, like 2 years on just fruit, and I mean, it's intense. But how does an individual go back to eating that on a regular basis, with their own, you know, capability of doing that? Because I know that some people who maybe have been juicing for a long time, or have done these types of fruit fast, that they try to go back to these foods and they're not able to. So if you could just kind of just touch on that a little bit, maybe give a little background to that.
Yeah, yeah. So Brother Air's physiological resume is just is phenomenal. But the artistry of it, to look at from point A when he started to where he is now, I mean, it's a study in really, really practicing the transition on the highest level. So as you were saying, you know, the first 10 years, from what I understand, just talking with him, you know, the first 10 years of his transition was it was pretty by the book. He was doing a lot of juicing at that time. So he used vegetable juices and his fruit juices, and eating a lot of fruit, and the fruit meal in the afternoon, a salad in the evening, and vegetables. You know, so just like classic transition diet stuff. And not a whole lot. You know, I'm sure here and there he dabbled in different little transitional items and stuff, but he didn't sound like he had anything where he was really on it hardcore for a long period of time. And he was doing enema. He started doing enemas, but then it was little bit later. I forget when he said exactly, like when you started doing the enemas like every day, you know, where he changed it up. He was doing the lemon juice and doing lemon juice and distilled water enemas. And that was kind of really, in some ways, his innovation, you know, where he looked at some of the things that Eric was saying just about enemas, because Eric is a bit vague. He definitely says that it's required that you really need to do enemas when you're fasting, when you're doing your transition diet. But he also says that after you have a bowel movement, it's not that big a deal just to, just throw a little, do a little colon irrigation, do a little enema there. So you can read you can read the book in such a way where it's like, well, it's not against the rules to do enema every day. And in some ways you interpret it, it's like, well, yeah, you can do it just like kind of like a hygiene type of situation. Like you brush your teeth, do your enema, go jump in the shower or the bath or whatever it is you do. And if you're gonna clean your outside, then you clean your inside a little bit.
Definitely.
And so he got into that, and but about 10 years into practicing, he started really craving, going through. I mean, we even call that eliminate. We kind of use the word elimination for a lot of things. So physically, if you're going through sicknesses or cold and flu-like symptoms, that's an elimination. But you can also be going through an elimination and eating based on like what you're eating. And so if there's something coming up and you're craving, because he was really craving it. So it was peanut butter and jelly. And so you had this natural jelly that was just nothing but fruit ingredients in it, no sugar, nothing. Same thing, peanut butter, just a jar of that, just natural peanuts that are just nothing but peanuts and oil or something, and that. And then the Ezekiel bread, or just the 100% sprouted grain bread that's toasted usually. And I think sometimes he didn't even toast it if he was craving it, but he would toast it. So throughout the day he would do his classic transition stuff. So you have his fruit in the afternoon, You know, they do his enema early in the day, fruit in the afternoon, salad and vegetable at supper. But then a little bit later on, he would go ahead and splurge on his peanut butter and jelly, and he did that for basically about 3 years. And so, what he's doing essentially, as you're working through, it's like you're working through some of this deep down stuff that's like deep in your system, these poisons and stuff, because you're essentially, when you put something like that in there, that it's neutralizing things that are worse than it is. So that's how you can eat a mucus forming item. And that's why it's, the transition diet is not about being 100% mucus free all the time. There is a place for the mucus forming foods, but there's certain mucus forming foods put in a certain way. That's the difference.
Yes.
That's what separates us from just a vegan or a vegetarian or something. There's a system
Yes.
to it. There's a process to it. And
Exactly.
so he was eating this stuff, and he would still do fasts and stuff, get part of the system. You get a couple days here and there of fasting in, but he was really going through something where he was just craving that, and instead of trying to resist it or forcing himself not to eat it, he look at the principles of diet and say, okay, this is something that it's not optimal, but there's a lot worse things that could be used. And so he decided that was going to be a tool for him to use, and he used it. And once he got off of it, he never craved it again. He stopped using it at a certain point. And I guess people had said he used to say he was getting heavy in this period of his transition. People was looking at him like, I thought you was on a diet or something. And he just said it was just a certain point where physiologic is okay. I'm done. I've got that out of my system. Now we're moving on to the next thing. The next physiological thing. And so he didn't do. Then it would have been another maybe 10 years of transition. So you get those 3 years of the peanut butter and jelly era. But it would be
era.
it's like basically an era. And you get to about 8 years later is when between that and then transitioning for another 8 years, and then he did his 20 years into practicing the Mucusless diet. He did his first year of nothing but fruit, where he ate where he was basically ate nothing but fruit for a year. And then after that kind of was like, that was the laser beam period for him, because then after that he just took off, and it was started doing longer fast and doing 30-day fast regularly, 90-day fast regularly, up until the point where then I met him. And when I met him, he had been a couple years since he did the all fruit, and he was in the process of doing the longer fast. And then he and there was also an energy, because that's another thing. There is an energy dynamic to this with the people that's in your life and that kind of stuff. And so everything was right where he was inspired to do his first really long, it was a juice fast, it was the 8.5 month long juice fast, which I witnessed. Now I was there and saw it and was like, okay, I'm like hanging with him almost every day. And I know he's not eating nothing, and I'm seeing just phenomenal things are happening just in terms of he'll wake up one day and somebody will given him like $1,000 drum set or something. Will just be on the porch. I mean, people are bringing over boxes of lemons just because they feel like it. It was like a gravitational thing happening. And so I learned a lot, just witnessing that and seeing that, and especially was in such my formative period of my transition. Yeah. And so to me, that story just it puts everything into perspective, because we're not telling people that it's okay to just that we're using that as some excuse, like it's all just transition. If you eat something bad, you're like, I'm just transitioning. Like, that's not the attitude that we're talking about. And some people try to put that on us like we're promoting, it's like, that is not it. What we're saying is that you want to accept that sometimes you're going to go through something. You're gonna go through some kind of craving, something's gonna pop up, and an expression of your artistry on the lifestyle is how do you choose to deal with it. And
Mm-hmm.
so when someone is not dealing with it effectively, they might be trying to, they'll start trying to do a whole bunch of enemas or something. There, I've seen people be like, I'm doing 5 enemas a day. Like, no one told you to do that, or they'll just start, do something like, well, I'm just going to dig deeper and eat more from. Like, no, that's not. Aaron didn't even say to do that. He said, if you start craving meat or something, then eat nothing but vegetables for a couple of days. Don't even eat fruit. Don't even eat raw fruit. Eat cooked fruit, and that's right out the Mucusless Diet book. And so, but these are the things that people miss, these details,
Yeah.
especially when they're bringing the baggage from other paradigms into the fruitarian and the raw foodism. You bring that into the fold, you're not going to be able to really benefit totally from Eric's methodologies.
Yeah, and that's so accurate, because we if you come from a Dr. Morris background, or you followed his protocol, even considering to having cooked vegetables in the beginning, from coming like 9 months on a fruit and mostly fruit diet, and trying to say, okay, we'll have some cooked vegetables now. I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
Which is
But
always been interesting to me, because that's letting me know that there's something else that was developing in that community in terms of a way to think about things that wasn't based on his writings. Because I could take you into his book right now, and it's permissible to have cooked mucus-free vegetables, in which, because he basically based his daily, like the daily meal regimen is very much based on Mucusless Diet Healing System, because it's basically fruit meal, fruit in the afternoon, and kind of some kind of salad meal in the evening, and cooked vegetables is an option that is
yes.
even in his book. And so when the Morris folks get like, they're just so anti and raw and all this kind of, like, I'm like, man, did you even read his book? I know you're watching the videos, but it's like there's a different, because it's the same thing with him. They don't study with the kind of
Yeah.
depth that you need to really get into what does this really mean, from an artistic standpoint and from a process standpoint, and really taking it all in. And so so that was always something. And I used to do that years ago in the original Morris group. Every once in a while, I throw that quote in there. I'd go in to get the Detox Miracle book. And I would take that part out where he's talking about, here, this is possible. If you need it, you can use it. And people would get real quiet, like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know. He wrote that. Oh, okay, he wrote that. All right. And
And that's again, that plays a lot of role with ego. And when you, like, don't get me wrong, when you want to heal and you're suffering in your chronic condition, that route is probably going to be the route you're going to have to take, because if your body's suffering, intuitively you're going to be pushed in a direction that your body feels it needs to be at. And this is where that's acceptable. But for the majority who are just like, hey, I have skin conditions, or hey, I haven't used the restroom in a couple of days, there's no need to be afraid of having some cooked vegetables, or having a mucus forming food at some point when you're transitioning. And again, back to the dogmas of all of these new groups, where they're causing and adding more confusion to the masses. And instead of having a group, which I feel the Mucusless Diet System is the closest to that, where, hey, you got to figure out where you're at. You got to figure out what you've been eating, what your lifestyle is like, and you got to go from there. And you got to make the changes from there moving forward, start doing your enemas, start incorporating things that are more of benefit of helping you eliminate. You know, there's a process to this, and the system is already set up, and you learn the system, you apply the system, and you go based off of what your body will tell you. And this is going back to obstructions. When your body's filled with obstructions, it causes you to be in a disoriented state, and it doesn't give you that clarity of thought and of awareness to really expand on this. And for the most part, I feel that we are in a time right now where let's just get this awareness out, and
Yeah.
individuals are going to realize that, hey, at some point you are going to need to do fruit. At some point you're going to need to do juices. At some point you're going to need to take a step backwards, and that's all okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And
Right.
this is where that you got to remove the distraction noise, and listen to yourself. Listen to nature. Listen to the way that, look at the way animals exist today. Like it's a part of our growth to figure these types of things out.
Right. It's
And
almost like we have to practice nature, you know, like we have to practice becoming more natural, because what some people do is they, you know, they again, they go to those extremes, and there's the people that's like, okay, I'm gonna get rid of everything out of my house and get rid of electricity and go live off the grid. And, you know, and they want to do all of this right this moment. Why don't you spend an hour? That, you know, that might even be too much for some people. I was going to say, like, spend an hour a day in the woods if you have woods nearby, or just an hour a day outside breathing. You know, a lot of people don't even do that. You know, or a half an hour, 15 minutes. You know, but that's the type of gradualism that you think in terms of transition. If you can't do a half hour, do 15 minutes. Just go outside and breathe. Focus on your breath. Take a walk in the woods. Take a walk up the street. You know, just doing something, and transition yourself into a more natural situation. Because you know, a lot of people, I'm seeing that all the time, where they jumped into just trying to just really do something overboard, and it's not sustainable. So what we're talking about essentially is Mucusless Diet Healing System offers a way to sustain transitioning toward a more natural kind of lifestyle. You know, where you move beyond a lot of the normal kind of illnesses. You know, and that's not to not say that something's going to come up that'll scare you, that's going to be deep, but it's not going to be the same as the folks that's getting whatever's going around, so called. You know, you take yourself out of that reality, and so you're dealing with something else. You know, you getting down into like we say, the latent illnesses, the things that you would have gone through if you made it to be 60 or 70 years old. Now you can go through it in your 20s, your 30s, because you're bringing these things out of you. You know, that was basically on almost like a time, a biological clock kind of thing, where they if you would have continued to live like you were living, these things would not have been able to come out in a timely fashion. But now you can deal with the stuff now. I mean, I've went through eliminations where, I mean, I felt like I was elderly or something, you know, where I'm just like going through it, where I feel like, man, I feel like folks that are 80 and 90 years old, how they look, that's how I felt. I didn't look like that, but I felt like it. And but it didn't last forever, you know. And I used the knowledge of the transition, and you know when to kick it up a notch and when to slow it down, you know, all of those things that I was able to develop in times when it wasn't as drastic. So a part of practicing the diet, you get good at, if you can be good at doing short-term fast, and good at speeding up and slowing down, you get a little sniffle or that type of elimination, or these little minor things. If you can really learn how to master the transition to get yourself in and out of these type of situations, then when something that's latent and old and serious comes down the road, you're gonna know what to do. You're gonna be able to apply what you learned on a smaller scale to something that's deeper and a little bit more scary, but you'll be ready for it. And I think that's a
Yeah.
piece that's missed by a lot of people, is that dynamic of there's a reason why everything doesn't have to be 100% right from the beginning, because you're learning, but be prepared, have this
Hmm.
information and the processes, and learn, understand how it works, and be prepared when things do get rough, because they probably will at some point, but you'll be ready for it.
Yeah, yeah, and that awareness alone right there is such. I mean, if a person is going to take anything from this video, take that right there,
Mhm.
where you got to realize that our body has to clean and it has to eliminate. And as you go through this, you're gonna get these levels of accumulated waste inside of us that is gonna need to come out. And we have been tricked into this whole, oh, I'm sick or I'm experiencing these symptoms, so I got to go get a medication or I got to go to the doctor and be given this and that. And that's not how it works. And when you realize this, you realize that you're trying to accomplish, in a sense, get to those levels of elimination within yourself to heal. So, man, I really looking through this. My mind is racing in a million different directions as we're talking, to think that like we we're barely even scratching the surface of
Right.
what we could talk about. And um, you know, for the most part, I was hoping to just get this get this out there, and let's start this. Let's start
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
increase this more.
Yeah, and we
Um,
can, and we definitely do more of this, man. We'll see how people like it, and your folks, and we'll just, I always like to see how things are received, and if it's really helpful to people, kind of keep doing it, because sometimes even with me, it's good to uh when I do see things that are helping people, and that and people are ready to hear the message, and I do get uh inspired to, like, all right, let's do it, let's do some more videos, and the more talks and stuff
mhm,
that way. Because sometimes when I go away for a while, like I get off into my music, and I get off into the other things, and I like to see that, what people are doing. But I will say that there's links, if you in the description, if you check out the description. So one thing that I do recommend folks check out is we have released an e-course this summer. And so, of course, get the book. You can find all links to all that kind of stuff to Eric's works. I mean, if you don't get anything else, find you a copy of the Mucusless Diet Healing System. And of course, I recommend the annotated Mucusless Diet Healing System, but just get to reading that, and then go from there. But if you're a little more advanced, or you want like to get happening immediately, and just like, okay, you're ready to just go for it, then I would definitely recommend checking out the Mucusless Diet Healing System e-course. There's a link for that in the description, and also sign up for our Insiders Club link, and that's, I send out newsletters usually once a month, and that kind of thing, and deals and sales on stuff. But yeah, the e-course, I haven't promoted it real aggressively yet, or let people know a whole lot of what's in it, but we've had about I guess 60 students that went through it thus far, and everybody that I talk to is really digs it, because basically it's like a college course for the Mucus Diet Healing System,
hmm,
where you just go through. There's even little quizzes that you can take along the way, and uh,
nice.
we go through every lesson, and expound on it. So I expound even more than I would do in the annotations, because it's a presentation, and so I got the uh, PowerPoint presentation behind me and all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, so I definitely recommend that, and we're gonna be doing more things with that. I'm gonna be releasing more information about the e-course to try to get it out to more people, because I think it can definitely be a game changer too, in terms of, I mean, there's even food preparation videos. I mean, I never thought that I mean, it's still funny to me that people want to see me making food. It's like, it's a wild
Yeah.
concept, but I have videos, and there's little recipes. So I put the recipes, because I know everybody's wanted me to do recipe books for a long time, and I'm still working on it. But in the meantime, there is, I think there's 12 or 13 recipes along with the videos of preparing them. And so that can definitely, definitely get you started. And so yeah, so you can check out the link below for that if you are interested in that. And of course, there's a lot of information here on the or on my YouTube channel, and Facebook. We got Professor Spira fan page, or Professor Arnold Ehret Mucusless Diet Healing System group, Arnold Ehret fan page. So there's a lot of avenues to get access to some of the things that we're talking about, as well as the community, because I've always tried to foster some kind of community, where you were talking earlier about how it can be tough with nobody out there. And at least one of the good things about the internet is that we can connect like this. We couldn't have done this in the 80s, and and
Yeah.
Brother Air was starting the Mucusless Diet to have a video feed. Like, I remember growing up, that was like thinking about having a phone connected to video was like so future. That was like, whoa, that would be crazy to do that. So now it's kind of normalized, and it's like, man, this is a very powerful technology that we've developed, and it's needed, because for everything that can be looked at that's negative, or the negative things that are done with it, there's going to be something positive that's going to counteract that and balance it out. And so we're here trying to get this information out there, and where we can create the world that we want to be in. Let's create a calm and world that's not based on death and eating death and celebrating death. Let's celebrate life.
Yeah, no, that's just again, I really greatly appreciate that you're taking the time to speak with me about all of this, and to just bring this awareness and enlightenment to individuals who are willing to take the steps necessary to heal themselves, and to become a bit closer to discovering their purpose in life and in this journey. It starts with you, regardless of where you're at, what your background is, how much money you make. None of that matters when it comes to your health, when it comes to how you feel, how you think, what you're experiencing. And what we're trying to do is we're just trying to enhance that right there, where you take it from, you could take it from whatever levels you choose to go up and beyond. That's your decision. But when you learn the foundation of the Mucusless Diet Healing System, you are putting yourself in a position to evolve. You're putting yourself in a position to, be the change that you want to see in this world. And that's what it comes down to with this. So yeah, thank you very much. And hopefully we can link up again, get Brother Air on here.
Yeah.
I know the difference just from watching so many of your guys' videos of how he brings a different dimension to the Mucusless Diet Healing System
Yeah.
because of his
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so the uniqueness of you two,
Yeah.
the combination, of course, it's great, and that's why we got to schedule something up where we can get us three talking about all
we'll
this.
get that, we'll definitely, we'll get that hooked up. And as we've been meaning to, at some point, me and him, we're going to do, do something anyway. We had that on the docket to, do something before the end of the year, just to, touch base with the world and
get one of those unleashed videos, because there's a lot of information that we're just scratching the surface, and trying to be how would I say it, trying to word things in a friendly child environment. Sometimes
family friendly, the family friendly framing.
We could definitely go on the other side of this, and maybe we could speak real, and that's kind of where, personally I really want to go, because I mean, sometimes a love tap is needed, but sometimes a hit to the face is also needed. So
exactly. That's always been an interesting thing that I've over the years have kind of navigated. And because when I started talking about the diet publicly, I was like more Malcolm X and Huey P. Newton talking about the diet. I was held no kind of punches at all. And then, but as it became more apparent that my calling was going to have to be like, you got to get this information out to like larger numbers of people than just a small little group of people that are kind of into it. Then I was like, okay, we got to make things, have a little bit of political correctness to just kind of be available to more people. But yeah, we go there sometimes. Brother Eric, he can kind of bring it out of me when he when we get in there and talk. Where I'm like, all right, we're gonna take the gloves off and let's go on ahead and deal with this. But we would definitely do this more. And folks, comment in the comment section. Let us know how you like the video, and if you want to see more like it, we'll try to make it happen.
All right, Professor Spira, well, it was nice talking with you, brother. You take care of yourself.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Peace, love, and love.